Whether the task ahead is a monumental war effort, humanitarian strategy, or volunteer act, there is typically one common denominator across the country of origin, socioeconomic background, or time period: food. People require sustenance no matter the task at hand. If something is going to be done, then preparing and partaking in the act of food is required. No surprise then, going through the pandemic has required nutrition support throughout the county for students, even when the obstacle of not being in the building so strongly opposed the traditional act of helping connect students with meals. As it has often occurred throughout the last 13 months, many tasks have been done quietly behind the scenes, people simply doing the work set out before them without complaining, and often going above and beyond what has been asked of them. This has been evidenced in the many areas around LaRue County schools, but particularly in the food service program. One example of this happened this past Friday. Prior to the release of students for the respite of spring break, food service workers and a few additional helpers coordinated meals for in-person students as well as families who are on virtual learning. With spring break being a time period of 5 weekdays, the team planned to help families with a box of food that would help throughout the upcoming days.
Typically, on our Friday pickups, we have about 30 families, maybe around 50 kids that pick up meal boxes from our virtual students. Last week, we sent out a Google form to our entire district, and we had about 151 families sign up for meals for next week, about 350 students.
While this event alone is impressive, the team has served in a number of ways during the pandemic.
Immediately when the pandemic started, we had to very quickly change what we did. We had about 2 days notice, so over the weekend I talked to my staff and we came up with a plan really quick and never stopped. But we knew our ultimate goal was to feed children. We had to continue feeding children. Throughout this last year, school has very much gone back from a hybrid, in-person, all NTI, and we've just rolled with it.
It could most likely be said, pandemic wasn't on a lot of people's minds as a potential scenario at the beginning of 2020 to require the feeding of students. That didn't stop LaRue County School food service personnel from being ready to take on the task. Instead, they did so gladly, constantly doing what has been held by all LaRue County staff since the outset of the pandemic: adapt, improvise, and overcome.
Over the last year of this pandemic, my staff has been the most selfless people I've ever met in my entire life. They have had very short notice of how to switch the learning mode that we're working on, how we're serving children, and they have not once complained. They knew that their ultimate goal was to feed the students of LaRue County. I could talk about them forever. They don't complain. They stand out in the snow, in the rain, in the hot, in the cold, and they do it with a smile on their face, and they're just amazing. They're the most amazing people I've ever met. I want to be more like them.